Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of the Christmas week. Now, hopefully, behind me, you can hear what today's topic is going to be about.
Yes,
I
I
hope
can
it's
hear it.
picking. I hope it's picking up. All right, great. This week,
I can sure
this
hear it.
day's episode is the Legend of Zelda. Woo! I'm one of your
Work with
hosts,
enthusiasm
Mike,
like Sonic. Wow. I'm James.
I'm Joey.
and as I already said, it's Zelda Day. I'm excited. My favorite franchise, hands down. And I got my two best friends here to talk about it with me for about an hour. So it's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So
We are going to. Oh, sorry.
Do we want to start where it began with the original Legend of Zelda?
I believe so. Let's
Yeah,
start with The Legend of Zelda from 1985.
I mean, 1986, kind of. That was its release.
Oh, yeah. It was a thought
yeah.
in 85. It started development in 85. It was released in February of 86.
Yeah. It was. Did it have saves at that point?
No.
I know it's the first.
No, it has it now on the NES Online, but it didn't have it.
No, it had it.
original.
It had battery saves on the original cartridge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. On the original cartridge. Basically, it was the first game to have save feature.
Yeah.
You know, it started the trend of like, oh, let me save and then come back to it. This was also the first like Zelda game that was like, allowed you. Well, I mean, this was one of the first games that just allowed you to straight up explore and just go wherever the frick you wanted.
Fair.
I mean, there's an optimal order to do things, but you didn't have to do that.
No, you didn't. I am currently, just for reference, I am playing Legend of Zelda 1 as we speak, and it holds up pretty well. I mean, the controls are still pretty good. I mean, the music's still phenomenal and legendary, and it's Zelda at its heart. I did beat this game, but I haven't beat it in a long time. I guarantee you, though, I could beat it in this podcast time zone, but I won't be doing that because I'll be playing. This is how big of a fan I am. I have set up with me right now just about every Zelda game there is, except for the, CDI ones because they don't exist. So Zelda started as a young boy, one 8-bit sprite on a screen that was no bigger than, how big were the LCDs? Yeah, how big were the screens back then? They were not very big.
Oh,
it was CRTs, and it was like 7
how
inches.
big were the CRTs?
Oh, good.
7 to like 15 inches, something like that.
Right. Not fun, but we made do. I mean, I say we. I never played it on that, but
I mean, it was released on the NES. The SNES. I mean, it got re-released on a lot of stuff, like on the GameCube, the Game Boy Advance,
the Switch,
Virtual Console. Yes, Switch Online, and the CS.
I'm playing it on the Switch now.
I have the hiccups. Oh god.
And I'd say the best version that was ever released was the weird Satellaview thing, the Super Famicom, like Super NES version, but it was only a download based, and it's the best way to play, but there's no current official way to play it because it was a limited time thing only in Japan, and it kind of sucks because there are like no re-releases.
I mean,
what are you gonna do?
A lot of stuff from the original Legend of Zelda has like stayed with the series from like till now. I mean, there's Ganon, there's Zelda, there's the Triforce, of course, Link with a sword and shield, and his outfit. Which, I mean, it's odd because you normally see stuff added or changed like later on.
Yeah, a lot of it has stayed. A lot of it has stayed tried and true.
Like it keeps a lot of its old features.
You also have fairies, the shields, the power ups. Sometimes they change and vary, but for the most part, it's the same group. Yeah, hookshot, rat, shield, obviously bigger shield.
The
bow, of course. You got your
It all
wand.
basically started here, and like basically allowed every other game to follow this footsteps. Not exactly like to the letter for this, but still, it like
Pretty damn
took
close.
notes from the. Yeah, it took notes from this all the time for a bunch of games.
Yes, they made the universe and they wanted to expand on it just in their own ways as compared to Legend of Zelda, the original.
Now, for the direct sequel,
Oh boy.
Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, the
Phenomenal
side
game.
scroller.
Phenomenal
I have
game.
never played this one, so I'll have you two take the floor for them.
Yeah, I've played it and I haven't really gotten far, and
It's hard.
it's very hard. And the thing is, I don't like going back to NES games because I find them to be archaic and just not accessible. But I do understand the good parts about it, like the progression, and it has tight gameplay. It does. It's just I can't look past the shortcomings and play it to the end. It's just
I've
I can
heard it
feel
being
that.
called like a bad Metroidvania game.
It's a difficult game. I think it's unfair to look back on in in the way that it was initially done, because the game was a completely different, excuse me, it was a sequel in a completely different way. Totally
yeah.
different from the rest of the franchise, honestly, and the game that came before it. So it was, it was a dark horse for a while because you didn't know what it was. You didn't, it was different. I'm currently playing it now, and just playing it now after just playing the original for a few minutes it's totally different. Um, it totally different.
Yeah, it's such a weird experience. It's not a bad experience. It's very weird though.
Yeah, it's good. I like it. But I wasn't at the time when it was the only other Zelda game to play, which a little unfortunate to think about. But yes, I have just found the guy. Of course, I am Error. It's funny.
Yes, and then his brother I am Bagu,
I
which is
am Bugger.
bug.
Yep.
Error and bugs. If you're a computer programmer, which I am, and so is James, you're very familiar with those. A little bit
Yeah.
of a tangent.
I I I have very fond memories of this game when I played it. It was, for the longest time, it was the only game that I never beat in the Zelda games, and I recently did beat it, and it it holds up pretty well, honestly. Nowadays, I would say, because I'm playing it right now. You know, I just finished beating the first dungeon, um, but I was already there when I left off. But the music is great.
One thing I'd say about it though is that it's very hard to play without a guide. Even in when the game was originally released, you had to have Nintendo Power and like hearsay from
Yeah,
different people to be able to know what to do. You have to play the game with a guide. If you don't, there's going to be a lot of trial and error and a lot of frustration. You can still beat it that way, but I'd say it's not the most fun way to play it.
that's fair. And yeah, I had to use a guide for this game. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say anything else. It's a confusing game, to be completely honest. It is not easy. Um, but at the same time, it was 1986, 1987. Games were hard.
Yeah, people had
games.
no idea how to design games then, so they were just doing things that they thought could work, and some did, some didn't, and that's
Yeah, it. So if all else fails, use fire. Yes, that is so true. Um, but Zelda 2, I feel like Zelda 2 gets a bad rap, and it's only because it was different. You know, it wasn't ever a bad game. I don't see. I struggle because I live in a world where this was not ever the only other Zelda game. So I struggle to see anything in this game as bad because it's different and I like it. But time frames. So Is what it is.
It was the only other Zelda game at that time, and it was a 2D side scroller, which was a completely different genre from. It was still an RPG adventure, but 2D side scroller is not a top down adventure game.
Yeah, that's true.
Even though they did that.
Oh, sorry. Go on.
I was gonna say I was gonna move on to Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, which does copy more of the original Legend of Zelda, coming out like on the Super Nintendo and
Link to the Past
Game Boy Advance
is often considered one of, if not the best game in the franchise to a lot of people. Myself, not included.
Same. I've found better ones.
I did too. I love that game.
I prefer Minish Cap to this one.
Minish Cap is a phenomenal game.
Yes.
I love Link to the Past. Link to the Past is in my top 5. Probably 4th if I had to place it. Obviously, Twilight Princess is my favorite, and then probably Breath of the Wild, and then then it gets harder.
Majora's Mask or Ocarina of Time?
No.
Wow.
I would put Ocarina at 5th and Majora's at 6th for me, but they're all so close. 3rd is probably Minish Cap for me.
Minish Cap is good.
Second's definitely Breath of the Wild.
Minish Cap is really good. I really need to go back and 100% complete that game. Like, I really want to do everything.
Minish Cap or Breath of the Wild?
Minish Cap.
Minish Cap is good. I played it. I 100%ed it. So good. But mostly we're talking about A Link to the Past right now.
Link to the Past, yeah.
Link to the Past, yeah, of course.
Really, actually introducing story for the first real time for Legend of Zelda, I feel.
Yeah.
Dialogue boxes and all that.
Where is this game? There it is.
Actually introducing lore into Legend of Zelda besides, us just going through the game and not knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
Having definitive color and more sprites, and allowing us to do more with our items than we previously thought we could, which was nice.
Yeah, and the controls in this game are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yes.
It feels great being able to like swipe people instead of just a stab that only hits 5 pixels in front of you.
Yeah. Instead, it's like your front, your from left to right, those front pixels you can swipe at. But you still have the charge attack too, so it still feels like that.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, of course, you get the spin attack eventually later on, but I mean,
I do like the swipe. The dark world, the sacred world. I love it. I think it's phenomenal. I think that it's such a great way to make this game longer without putting so much stress on the cartridge, because this game, obviously it was limited space back then, so they had to figure out a way to make the game long without making it too big. So they just used the same map for 2 different worlds, but they completely changed what's in them. And that's so cool. Such an interesting way to just make a longer game at that time.
Yeah.
I personally don't have much else to say about this one, except that I played it. It was good. We got Ganon again there.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really get introduced to Ganondorf until I think Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, the 3D.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ocarina of Time.
But yeah.
That can't be all we talk about for Link to the Past. It's
I'm just gonna say it's mostly. It felt more like a sequel to the original Legend for me.
Yeah, I think that's what it was meant to be.
It felt like a real sequel to it rather than
yeah, that's fair.
Then the Adventure of Link. No offense to Adventure of Link, I just felt like this one actually feels like. If I looked at all the games, I would say these two were right next to each other. I would put these two were the ones that are next to each other.
To be fair, we can look at it from that point now. But at that point in time, there really wasn't a timeline or a lore. So
yeah,
people only associated this
I'm
with
not even saying like a timeline or lore. I would say just as a gameplay perspective. I would not. There'd be no way that I'd be able to tell that this Zelda 2 came after The Legend of Zelda. Without looking at the titles, they look like two completely kind of different games.
They do.
Legend of Zelda 2 Link to the Past looks like, oh, that's a sequel to that. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, it plays like a sequel. It's designed like a sequel.
And the graphics for this time period, it looks so great. You know, yeah, it's a little hand-holdy. It kind of just tells you where to go at all times. But who cares? It's Zelda. It's fun. Like it.
It does a good job of what it is. It's a good game. It's a good installation. But
It's
that's
phenomenal.
mostly the thing with Legend of Zelda. They're at least decent. None of them have gone like to bad realm.
That is true.
Like it sell bad or tanked. They've all like done at least decent.
Yeah, the worst, the Skyward Sword is the one that I think of like that did, the lowest, or at least in people's minds.
It was still fun.
It was still fun. Well, the only Zelda game that I personally dislike, no, that's not fair. The only Zelda game that I guess dislike is the best word, but I don't hate it. I like every game.
It's not your most favorable.
My least favorite Zelda game is Four Swords Adventure. Four Swords / Four Swords Adventure, because I thought it was just really gimmicky, and also I didn't have friends, so it was not fun for me.
Yeah, it's supposed to be a multiplayer game, and if you don't have multiple people to play it with, that's
not best. I had friends, but I didn't have friends that also wanted to play that game.
Yeah, to be like, and I have since gone back and played it with friends, but I don't know. I thought it was weird. It was not my cup of tea, personally.
That's fine.
But it was still a good Zelda game. I don't think there's a bad one in the bunch. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much how it is for me.
Okay, yeah, Four Swords is basically associated with those.
Well, isn't it pretty much just Link to the Past, but 4 people?
There are different versions.
Yeah.
Like there's the one for the DSi, which was kind of its own thing. There's the one for the GameCube, which is kind of its own thing, and then for the the remake on the Game Boy. Yeah, I don't remember if that was an original thing or not, but
The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past was a re-release with on the Game Boy Advance with Four Swords as the new game to go along with it.
Yeah.
Right.
So kind of. I'm not really entirely sure, honestly.
It's hard to say for Four Swords, but I think we're done with A Link to the Past for now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean honestly, it's a legendary game.
It is a legendary game, but honestly, I found it very forgettable compared to the others.
I mean, it's treading on the same ground, but doing it better. I feel like it's treading on the same ground.
How do you find it forgettable?
Because I found games that did it a lot better, and so I would
say Minish Cap is a better version of Link to the Past.
Okay, but I think they're completely different games.
Yeah, they are. I am going to give you that. I'm just staying with Joey's point.
I'm gonna wait until we get to a different game in the franchise for me to explain my views. Okay.
I think I know what game that is, but all right.
For the next one, Link's Awakening. Recently got a re-release.
Yeah.
One of my favorite Zelda. That's the one that's my fifth. That's 5 for me. Link's Awakening is so amazing.
It's really fun.
The re-release is so great. It was for the Game Boy. I was able to play it on fucking 8-hour. Because my family used to go down to Florida like twice every year. I would play the shit out of that game. I beat that game so many times. And
it was on the Game Boy and Game Boy Color.
Yeah, yes. I played it on the Game Boy Color. I should clarify.
I played it on the 3DS.
I played it on the 3DS as well. I also played it on the Switch.
Yeah,
I didn't play it at all. I didn't play it at all.
It's
really good.
Game is great.
It does have weird mechanics that don't really fit into the other Zelda games, but that's kind of what makes it unique and memorable.
Does it?
I'd say.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I guess so.
Like, it has the powder, it has the jump
That's
thing.
true. That's fair.
It's
I'll
the
give you
first
that.
game that had those, and it's just like, it's so
Yeah,
weird, but that's what makes it so memorable.
it's the first time that Link can jump.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
he could kind of jump with the Pegasus things with Link to the Past, but that was more only over certain things.
Yeah. Whereas this is anywhere in the game.
Yeah, and not to mention, it had a great ending. That giant egg. I won't spoil it, but that giant egg area, so cool. And like that whole island area, like I still firmly believe that it was all in his head.
Yeah,
We
that
can talk
ending really
about that for
scrambled
others.
it really scrambled my brain, that ending.
Mm-hmm. Shut up.
That's an egg joke.
Okay then.
You like my yolks?
No,
Okay, that's fair.
your yolks are as good as Yoda.
Damn.
Link's Awakening. How do you guys feel about it overall, or do you think you're done with talking about
I think it's there's not many things that I love the shovel. I love to dig. I love there were so many cool different things. Like you could just dig up the entire. I remember I dug the entire beach up one time because I was first off it was my OCD, and second off I just really wanted to see if there was anything cool around there. There was a couple things.
Yeah.
There was just so much replayability, and I don't know. I upgraded everything to the max.
Did you ever steal from the shopkeeper?
Yes.
That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
You ever? I love the birds, crazy birds, the cuckoos.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
That was also in A Link to the Past, though.
Yeah, I know.
So good, so much fun.
Okay.
Next
After
we have to go. Yeah.
I was gonna say after these next two, I think that's when we take our break. But we need to
Okay.
get these ones in. The
Next
next one,
game.
the first 3D Legend of Zelda game.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time. A game that Joey and I have talked and debated about many times. Here's the thing. We both love Ocarina of Time because you can't really hate it. But we both view it slightly differently. I think we both agree that it's overrated. I think Joey thinks it's a little more overrated than I do, but overrated nonetheless. I think it's one of the most revolutionary and important games in video game history. Not one of the best. It does not hold up well very much. I don't believe it holds up well at all, frankly. I know people are going to get mad at me, but
the most important and iconic out of the series.
Yeah. Oh, easily.
I would say that.
Easily. Yeah.
I mean, introduce Ganondorf. We got our 3D Zelda here.
But I think Majora's Mask is such a better game.
There. We got our 3D Link.
We did get the Ocarina. Joey, I'm going to pass it to you because I know you have your own opinions.
Yeah. I mean, I was just going to talk about how, like, number one, if you're going to play this game, you're better off playing the 3DS game nowadays.
That's true. That is true.
It does it better.
It does it a lot better. I know there are people who are just like, no, you have to play the original. Nowadays, people can't really play those types of games.
And it hurts their hands.
It really does.
It hurts your hands. The water level is pain.
Yeah, you need a lot of convenience when it comes to some of these things, and the original...
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
I have the original cartridge, but I don't think I've ever actually... No, I played it once. But I don't think I've ever beaten it on the original cartridge, because N64 controllers hurt.
I have not played on the N64 cartridge.
That joystick is mean.
I used to have an N64, and it is not fun, because I remember playing Mario Party 2 on that, and it was not fun to play with that. Dear
God, the spinning minigame.
Mario Party 2 is an amazing
Tug
game.
of war with that. Tug of war, spinning it
exactly. Mario Party 2 is an amazing game, don't get us wrong. But the controller made it really, really hard.
Yeah.
But, you know, the release on the GameCube, though, for Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, I think is what most people are...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was a really good version.
Ocarina of Time will always be one of the most important, iconic, greatest games of all time. but it's not the best.
I mean, it also introduced like the 3D design of the.
Yeah.
Like we got a better look of everything. It was good.
Very important game. Very good.
This is how we viewed Link for the rest of the series, basically. After this game.
Yeah.
Though I wouldn't say it's the better of the two.
No, I would
say it's the better of the two. I'm just saying this is what introduced so many iconic features.
Majora's Mask also had the benefit of, I believe,
the
6 months.
shield, the sword, the outfit, Ganon, Zelda. It introduced so much good
shit.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah.
And we still feel those effects today.
Majora definitely did it better, but Majora also came out later.
Majora was also the sequel.
Stop interrupting me, you fat fuck. I'm just kidding.
No.
Oof.
I was gonna say a lot. I was gonna say something much worse, so that's why fat came out. I didn't mean to say that. That was very wrong. But I was gonna say something much worse, and I was gonna be like, "You fucking jack." So I just kind of was like, "No, that's not say that." You
fat bald bastard! You piece of subhuman.
Oh God, subhuman. That's
actually a reference.
I know.
It's not as bad as you think.
No, I know. But Majora's Mask also had the added benefit of knowing that engine more, and it had more time because it came out afterwards. It knew more about what to do with that engine and how to make it work better. And Majora, therefore, was a much better game. Now, Majora still has its flaws. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely. I'd say kind of the best way to play it is the 3DS version. There are shortcomings to that version. Like, the movement for the Deku Scrub is... the screen.
It's also on the Wii U Virtual Console, but hasn't been released since.
Yeah. And they really dumbed down a lot of things because they found it as bad game design instead of just the way that it is.
Yeah, I hate when that happens. Re-release the game the way the game is. Stop.
Yeah.
Upgrade
I think this might be the one that hasn't gotten a re-release. Like, the last re-release for Majora's Mask was 2016.
I would even say it hasn't even gotten the re-release that it deserves, because the one that we got, yes,
everything else was either recent or has a more recent date.
Plus, I mean, the 3DS version is flawed. The best way to play it is on an emulator on the PC with certain mods that make the gameplay better. Like, actually,
well, it's gonna come out. It's coming out on the Switch. Although, if the N64 Online is anything to go by, it's not going to be good.
It's not going to be the best version.
But we were talking about Ocarina of Time now before we moved to Majora's Mask.
When you talk about one, you kind of have to talk about the other.
We have to talk about
they're in conjunction with each other.
Yeah.
But I mean, do we want to get onto our points with Ocarina of Time? About,
well, my points with Ocarina of Time interflow. My points with Ocarina of Time interconnect with Majora.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay then. Fine. I guess we'll make this one both.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're if you look at them from, Joey, you might be. I consider myself a super fan for Zelda. I know you do as well. But
not really. I don't really consider myself a super fan. I consider myself a fan, and I really like the games. I just wouldn't go out of my way to say super fan.
But so I'm going to call bullshit on anybody that if you took a frame from Majora's Mask and a frame from Ocarina of Time, I'll call bullshit on anyone any day if they could tell me which one's which. You can't. They look the same.
You really can't. So some of them are darker than the other, and even then, it's just you don't know.
Yeah, they look the same.
Yeah.
I
mean, I could probably tell if I'm adult Link or something from Ocarina of Time. And that's what.
Well, yeah. But,
or if you can tell based on the surrounding area, but that's kind of it.
But I was kind of mainly going off of just the art
style. You basically would
itself.
have to know all you could about both games.
Yes, which I kind of.
And I consider myself someone who does know just about everything from those two because I've played them both many times. But Ocarina of Time, it's hard because on one hand you have a better game. Majora is a better game than Ocarina, hands down, objectively. No, plenty of people will argue that, and I don't understand why. Because Ocarina, I believe, has the better achievement. Ocarina's the more important game than Majora's Mask. Ocarina
was the first of the three Zeldas.
Yeah, that, and it was Ocarina's the reason Majora's Mask even exists. I mean, so much of Zelda owes its legacy to Ocarina of Time. Whether or not it holds up, it doesn't. whether or not it holds up kind of is irrelevant for Ocarina of Time because of how important it is. Whereas Majora's Mask isn't as important because it was already done. Now, Majora's Mask did it better, but would it have ever happened without it, Ocarina of Time? I don't think so.
Probably not.
Probably not. And so, in that regard, I would say that while Majora's Mask objectively is a better game, it's just not as important. And that's not to say that it's not important. It's just
not as important.
Yeah, I think that there's no other aside from the original, which is why we have any of the games.
The sequel. It suffers by being
basically.
We can all agree that Terminator 2 is better than the original Terminator, but it wouldn't have happened if Terminator.
Yeah, I mean, it comes into that.
It suffers, but it also is only good because it's a sequel. So it's like this weird gray area.
Exactly. That's why I think that
it's hard to view it as that. You can't view them in isolation. That's important.
No, you can't. That's why I'm of the firm belief, and I don't know if we've talked about this in a podcast before, but I'm of the firm belief that Majora's Mask is a better game than Ocarina of Time. But Ocarina of Time is the most important game in the Zelda franchise, aside from the initial game, obviously. But
it's iconic. It's really important. It sold a lot of copies.
And it's arguably the greatest game of all time because of how important it is.
I wouldn't know how that, but I'll give
it. It's constantly there.
I'd say it's iconic and it's important.
It's constantly in the conversation of best video game of all time because of how important it is for not just Zelda, but for 3D. Like the only other real big 3D game before it was Mario 64, and that was Mario. Yes, Mario's great, and that game was obviously more important. But I feel like Mario is such an easier thing to do with 3D than something like The Legend of Zelda. Not just me. That might just be complete bias, and most people might just disagree. But personally, I think that a simple platformer would be easier to do in 3D. Now, granted, Mario 64 is not a simple platformer. Anybody who's played that game knows that it is a very, very open, explorative game. But it's still level based. It's still, you go from point A to point B, very literally. Whereas Ocarina of Time, you're exploring. Yeah, you go from different areas, different places at a time sometimes, because level or when you progress in the game. But it's one world. It's one big world. There is no you jump into a different world. So to show that you could do that in 3D and to show that you could do it successfully, it's like greatest game of all time versus best game of all time. Greatest game, I believe, is a category of games of importance, whereas best is games that are just objectively the best, like with graphics, music, gameplay, etc. So I would put Majora's a lot higher on the best game list, but I would put Ocarina as one of the most important games.
Okay. We're talking about how they're similar. I do want to different.
How are they different?
Legend. Yeah, Ocarina of Time.
Majora's Mask doesn't have a water temple. So
no, I was going to go about gameplay. Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time really does feel like a 3D version of its older predecessors.
Yeah.
Also, Majora's Mask does Majora's Mask does have a water temple. It's just more fun because there's more movement instead of just yeah.
You got masks. You have a time feature. You have to make sure after 3 days, you go around 3 days, you have to go back in time.
It's a completely different environment. I don't know how to put it. It
saves your progress in a different way, because you have an item now that you can take back. You have a mask that you can take back with you in time.
It has a different atmosphere. That's what I meant.
Easier.
Atmosphere is completely different.
It's dark, and the evil moon. That moon gave me nightmares for a long time.
But I love that darkness. It is so good.
It's so good.
It just
so
adds
fitting
to
for Zelda. It's so fitting for Zelda.
I'd say we appreciate it more because we're adults, because as a kid, that's kind of creepy and nightmare-inducing. But as an adult...
As a kid, dude, I didn't beat Majora's Mask until I was 18. Are you kidding me? That game was scary.
Same. Honestly, same.
Majora's Mask, like especially with the undertones of like, oh, dead people, it's kind of hard to be like,
Mental illness,
like,
Skull Kid.
Yeah, Skull Kid, all the Mask of Dead People.
Yeah, that game was dark as hell.
But I love it.
And it fits because the art style couldn't be anything bright. It had to be kind of like that. So because it was already kind of a gloomy art style, they played off of it so well with how dark that game was. And I love it. Love it.
Same.
But we're only about halfway through the lineup of games. So
and I think that would be a good
now is a great time to take a break.
Yes.
When we come back, we have the likes of Skyward Sword, Minish Cap, Oracle games. Oh, so many good games.
And
Twilight
Breath
Princess,
of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
And Wind Waker.
And Wind Waker and Hyrule Warriors, which we'll touch on a bit because now it's canon.
And the 2DS games, yeah.
Well, dude, I love Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass. They're so good.
Same. Okay, we'll have some very differing opinions on those.
I didn't play those. Okay, but now let's take a break.
Okay, so we shall be back after this break. See you then.
Welcome back. Last time we were talking about Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. I think we pretty much finished our discussion after that, and we'll be moving on to The Legend of Zelda: Oracle of Seasons.
And Ages.
And Oracle of Ages.
We'll tie both of them in for this one. I haven't played either of these two games.
So I have.
And I've played one. It was part of like I bought it on the eShop for the 3DS.
So Oracle of Seasons takes place in a holodrome, which is a different world, and the big villain is a guy named Onyx, the General of Darkness. And so what you're trying to do throughout the game is save Din. Din is the Oracle of Seasons, and so you kind of just go around trying to stop Onyx from reviving Twin Rova and Ganon and all of that stuff. But you don't know it's Ganon until the linked ending. And then in Oracle of Ages, it's pretty much a carbon copy. However, there's different gimmicks. So in Oracle of Seasons, you control the weather. You control which season it is. Oracle of Ages, you go from one time to another, kind of like in Ocarina of Time. But you stay the same age. You just go into a different time. And in that game, the Triforce calls out to Link again, and you go into Labrina instead of Holodrome, where again you find Impa and you find Nehru, who is the Oracle of Ages. And then Varan is the Sorceress of Shadows. She captures Nehru, and your goal is essentially the same as Oracle of Seasons. You got to rescue Nehru and stop Twin Rova. But that is something you only really see at the end. And then you can link the games together, and if one game is played as a sequel to the other by a linked password, Twin Rova, who they capture Zelda, lighting the flame of despair, which is something that is at the very end. You face off against Twin Rova, who is attempting to use the three flames from the flame of despair to revive Ganon. Link obviously defeats Twin Rova and then has to defeat a mindless, poorly resurrected Ganon. He frees Zelda and they exit the crumbling castle. Blah, blah, blah. Fun. Games were great. I really enjoyed them. They both had cool gimmicks. I love the Impa, old little Impa in those games. Fun. I like how it's kind of did a Pokemon thing where, there's two versions of the same overall game, and then there's a kind of like a third one at the end that kind of wraps things up. It was really cool. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, and actually they were trying to make like a third one, like the Pokemon games, but it was never really in the cards. So it was
gonna be Oracle of Time.
Fair enough.
Wasn't it Oracle of Time?
Kind of. kind of like Oracle.
That's kind of already time. I'm not
It was
sure.
gonna be something. I thought it was gonna be Oracle of Time, but I don't know.
I mean, they're both kind of like time based and going seasons, and that's going to be ages.
I mean, yeah.
So it would have
like
been something we don't know exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, all we know is that those games released and they were pretty good.
Yeah, they were very underrated. No, I don't really hear people talking about them. There was rumors of a during the Zelda 35th anniversary, which was very depressing. During the 35th anniversary, there was rumors amongst many others that the Oracle games were getting re-released, but they're never going to get re-released before something like Twilight Princess or Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask.
Yeah, unfortunately. I did enjoy my time in the game. I just never really finished it.
That's fair.
It's the same thing with the other games around this time period. It's just kind of archaic to me, and I would enjoy it more with the modern age, but
as someone who loves RPGs, like Golden Sun, like from that era, I still love them. So it's easier for me to go back to that art style and that time frame, because the Game Boy, 3DS, the DS, all of those have a very similar style. So I still play my 3DS to this day. I have many SD cards full of games, including the Oracle games. So I understand what you're saying, but I have an easier transition going back, just because I still play those consoles frequently.
Yeah,
I play my 3DS.
I play my 3DS for Federation Force, but that's besides the point.
You play your 3DS in heinous acts, then.
I only played the first mission. It was decent.
I never touched it, and I never will.
That's fair. I mean, if you ever wanna. Yeah, I know you don't. But
no,
right now we're talking about Zelda, and that was the Oracle games. After this is the Four Swords games, because it was released around that time, but
along with Link to the Past re-release.
Yeah, but we already talked about Link to the Past and Four Swords.
Is kind of just four people playing the same game. It's a gimmick. It worked.
I find it weird that Four Swords in the timeline is past.
It's its own game. It's confusing. That's really the only confusing bit for me. Timeline, because I'm like, it's not a different time though. It's just linked to the whatever.
It's linked to the whatever.
It's weird.
Oh, it's incredibly weird. Yeah. But I enjoyed it.
In the timeline, it comes out. It's before Link to the Past.
Link to the Past. Yes, I'm just like, that's a little, but okay.
I don't know.
The Four Swords Adventure is somewhere in there, so we don't talk about.
Yeah,
it's a better Four Swords
Adventure. Four Swords Adventure takes place after. It's the finale of one of the three altering timelines. I think it's called. Yeah, the
one where Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask take.
Yeah, exactly.
A weird one for those two games.
Yeah, it's very weird.
The dark timeline, if you will.
I kind of just consider those games, oh hey, they're fun games, but other than that, you kind of just don't think about it too deeply.
I don't think about the timeline.
Honestly, take it from somebody who's basically memorized the Zelda timeline. Don't take it seriously. There's a lot of games you should honestly just cut out of the timeline because they're weird. But
and Breath of the Wild is supposed to be at the end somewhere.
The Breath of the Wild is the end. So it's essentially like all three timelines, all three separating timelines after Ocarina of Time. They all end. Whenever they end, they all pick up in Breath of the Wild. So Breath of the Wild, so all three of those happen, but they all still end in the same area.
And I would go ahead and say it's the end so far because we don't know what they're going to retcon.
Honestly, yeah.
I find that weird that all these ones would come, but okay.
Yeah.
I like Breath of the Wild. I like how they did that because at least now
we'll talk about Breath of the Wild later. We'll talk about Breath of the Wild later. Let's
all right,
chronologically.
Okay. The next one we'll talk about is the Wind Waker. Yes.
Wind
Waker. Another one I actually played.
Wind Waker is the game that I meant to say earlier. So earlier we were listing our favorite games. I couldn't remember it, and I remember I just said Minish Cap. Minish Cap's phenomenal, but for me, I'm a very list-heavy person, and I forgot about Wind Waker. I know, I'm sorry. It's a sin. I know, I'm sorry. All right, but my favorite Zelda games, I could do a top 10, and I'm actually going to, because why not? It's our podcast. I can do whatever the fuck I want. So it's for me, it's and this is totally off topic. I know I'm not supposed to do this, but again, who cares? Wind Waker's phenomenal. One of the best games. It's my third favorite Zelda game. So for me, it's Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild, Wind Waker, Minish Cap, Link to the Past, Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, Link's Awakening, Link Between Worlds, and then Skyward Sword.
Okay, I hope you wrote that down, audience, because I definitely didn't.
Yeah. If I'm allowed to choose the Hyrule Warriors games, then Age of Calamity, it bumps off Skyward Sword as number 2.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But anyway, back to Wind Waker. Wind Waker is a cock tease because at the time it came out when people thought they were getting a really realistic Zelda game, and it turned out to be this cartoon game. And then people played it, and they realized, holy crap, this is dark, this is weird, this is awesome. And this style fits Link perfectly.
It's where we get the Toon Link from.
Yeah, and he's so cool. I mean, listen, it's a dark game. It starts off, spoiler alert, big red button, big red letters. Spoiler alert. The game starts off with your sister being kidnapped by a giant bird and thrown into a giant death temple, where you literally are just trying to save her, and then you can't. And oh my god. All right. I gotta be quiet. Eventually my dad's gonna come up, and then I'm gonna have to just go back downstairs because my mom's trying to sleep. But at the end of the day, I'll wait until that happens. It's so good. And there's so much adventure. The King of Red Lions, so good. Tetra is amazing. I mean, Zelda. No, I'm just
this
kidding.
Game also inspires Phantom Hourglass Spirit. 2 games I didn't play. But it maintained the same art style.
I played Spirit Tracks and I loved it, and then I tried to play Phantom Hourglass and I just couldn't get into it.
So, are we moving on to them now?
Yeah.
I mean, I was going to Wind Waker. Inspired. But I mean, mostly I was just like, okay, it did both of these things, but mostly for me, I mean, it plays well for me when I played it. I like the adventure aspect.
I love Wind Waker's story.
The story is good. The battle is good.
I like how it's a flooded Hyrule. It's like you're swimming, you're riding a boat over Hyrule, and like it's
all a water level.
It's so cool. So interesting. The lore behind it.
It's not a water level, it's a boat level, and it's really good.
Like in the timeline, it is like the adult era after Ocarina of Time. Ganondorf is sealed. The hero of winds and a new world. Ganondorf is resurrected. Hyrule is sealed and then flooded. Like, it's so cool. And then directly following, are we? Do you want to move on to the next 2 games?
I mean, no. I mean, there's other games before the.
Oh right, I'm looking at. I keep forgetting.
You're looking at timeline. I was going to do it in release order.
That's fine. That
next
works.
would be Four Swords Adventures. All I have to say about this is it's the better Four Swords, and we can move on after that.
I'd actually prefer the DSi version over.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it the better version?
I would say, like, upon the original release, the DSi version.
Yeah,
both of them. I'm saying it was better than the original Four Swords.
All right, you know what? I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
The DSi version of Four Swords beats both of them.
Yes, it was my favorite. I loved playing that one.
Okay, then after that, since you can tell we don't like Four Swords, after that, Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap, my favorite top-down Legend of Zelda.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It is so good. You get the spin. It has the better collectible. It does a lot of the collectibles really good for this one. Even ones that were in 3D that get shifted into Minish Cap. It does it so well. And there's also the feature of minimizing, so you can explore previous areas now, like from a different perspective.
Yeah, now you get to be Ant-Man. Your wildest dreams come true.
It's a way to put it, but it does it really well.
Yeah,
Like
it's really fun.
shrink and grow, beat enemies in different ways, go through areas differently, interact with different people, get different items. It's really good. It, like this is when I was saying that I feel like the out of the top down Zeldas, it's the best. It feels like a culmination of all of that for that one for me.
I I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I do understand where you're coming from. It's really good.
It's really good. I feel like it does a lot of stuff. Has a good story. And
all right,
yeah,
my turn.
Minish Cap. Go for it.
Yeah, go right
your
ahead.
turn. Like take
Minish
your
Cap.
draw your last pathetic card, Yugi.
I will, Kaiba. I love Minish Cap. There's no gripes with it for me. One of the most objectively good games in the series. Very little, if any, flaws, to be honest. I love the story. You know, it's the first one that introduced Vati. Well, no, it's the backstory of Vati. To be fair, I forget if it's the
The
first one to
backstory of
introduce him.
Ati. Four
But
Swords was
it's the
Ati.
it's the second game in the timeline. After Skyward Sword.
Skyward Sword.
And it's I love Eslo. He's one of my favorite companions. Did you forget his name?
No, I just like him better than Hey Link or Link use the Wiimote.
Yeah, well, he's an actual companion. I think he's really cool.
He's an
I know
actual
he's a
good
hat.
companion.
I know he's a hat, but
Yeah.
like, I
He's
like
the
him more than
best darn
Patchy.
hat. He's the best darn hat you'll ever have.
Play. It's
He's
the
better than
best play
Cappy.
on Link's hat. It's a
Yeah.
best play on hats before for like
You guys,
Link's costume.
real quick, Cappy or Eslo? For me, it's Eslo.
Eslo, 100%.
Eslo. No diss to you, Cappy. You're cool, but Mario's not as good as Zelda. No, I'm just kidding.
Eslo actually helps.
Eslo actually helps.
He has
Yes.
lore and everything.
I love Eslo, and I love the Minish. They're little Picori. They are the Picori. You know, the Hylians refer to them as Picori.
Yeah.
They're so cool. They're so little people. I love it. And then Vati, you know, the Picori blade, Vati's petrifying Princess Zelda. It's a great game, and you know,
it's also a good childhood between Link and Zelda done well.
Yeah, it actually is done well.
Yeah.
Minish Cap is so good.
I love the final fight. You know, Vati and all of his monstrous different forms, and you know, you finally the elemental sanctuary. Like there's so much good things in this game, and it really is just hard to top. But we did it because next.
Next we do have The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess.
My favorite game. Let me take over here, my friendos.
I was just gonna say this is also one of the ones that was released in North America first, and it was the 20th anniversary of Legend of Zelda.
And the only good anniversary gift we've ever gotten.
A Wii launch game, by the way, too. It was really good for some reason.
So, Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess is the third best-selling Zelda game, behind only Breath of the Wild and Ocarina of Time. Fun fact. And it
also got a teen rating.
It did get a teen rating because that game's dark as fuck. It introduced one of, if not the best, side character in Zelda, which is Midna. It introduced Link, which was really cool. I love that because it's what Sonic Unleashed tried to do, except it's successful. And I played this game. I got frustrated with it. I had a full life cycle with this game. I loved it. I loved it more. I thought it got annoying. I hated it. I hated it more. And I loved it the most. And then it pissed me off. And then it made me love it. And it was such a great overall experience. Like that hatred, that anger during the chase where you have to prevent the carriage from getting on fire as you're riding your horse. That whole scenario, infuriating. But when I finally beat it, God, I wanted to punch a hole in a wall because I was so pumped up. I was like, I did this. I went and stabbed a tree. I was so happy. Like,
not in real life, right?
Wow.
No, not in real life. I started killing the chick, like trying to kill the chicken. I threw a cat off a roof. Like I did so many things in that game after I did that because I was like, yes, I am the best. I've done it. And then I died a couple times because the game's hard. I think it's the best iteration of Ganon that we've ever seen. With Ganondorf, I think that overall the adventure style is so great. I love your horse. I love getting to ride him. I love Epona. Epona is the best.
How do you feel about Dark Link, though?
Dark Link was great because I hated him in a couple in like Adventures of Link. I thought he was really stupidly hard for no reason. In Ocarina of Time, he was annoying. He was cool, I guess, but he was annoying. But in this game, it felt real.
It was actually good.
It was good.
He was actually like an opponent.
Yeah, I liked the mini games too. Like I like the retrieve the cat initial thing when you start the game. This is the game where the save the cat started, and for better or for worse, it helps to introduce the controls overall. And I mean, it's got, I think, aside from, I'm checking the ratings now just to back my point up, but it has been released the most times with the sole, actually, it has been released the most times. The only, no other Zelda game has been released more than Twilight Princess. Only 2 games have had the same amount of releases, which are Ocarina and Link's Awakening. And overall, Twilight Princess, aside from Breath of the Wild, has the best review ratings, hands down. Even more than Ocarina of Time, because Ocarina of Time has the N64 one has the best rating. However, Twilight Princess has 3 95% ratings, whereas Ocarina has a 98, a 90, and a 94. So, both are great, but Twilight's more consistent. So, there's so much I want to talk more about it. It's my favorite game ever made. I thought you weren't about to just brush me off and tell me to go tell the next game, right? Oh, okay, good.
No, I was going to tell Joey, ask Joey what he feels about the game.
No, I'm not done.
Wow.
Give Joey some time to talk.
Right, Joey,
and you can go back to it.
Okay, I love the game. At first, I was confused by the beginning area, but as I played through more of it, I loved it and the whole story behind it.
The Twilight are so cool.
The only things that I'm not really sold on yet about it are what is it? There's the Bug Lady, which is okay. I know people love her, but I'm just kind of yeah, sure, whatever you say. And then, yeah, the little marble mini game that completionists hate because, oh my goodness, it just keeps on going.
If I was a completionist, this might not be my favorite game.
Yeah.
I love that final fight where you see spoiler alert, don't watch, don't read, don't pay attention for the next 5, 10, maybe hour, however long I keep going. Okay, end of spoiler. I love the final fight where you walk in and Zelda's just lifeless in the sky, floating above Ganondorf, and you have to fight Zelda because Ganondorf possesses Zelda, and then you have to fight Ganon as his gigantic boar beast-like form.
And then he gets so confused about the fishing rod.
And then shut up. And then the power of Midna, the power Midna received from Zelda, she's able to revive Zelda. And I love Eldin and Farron and Lanayru. It's so the areas are so cool. The light spirits, the Twilight.
I actually really love Zant. He's one of my favorite characters.
Zant is so much fun. I love him. He's so evil, but he's cool.
He's so evil in a weird way. And in a weird good way. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so much fun. the Twilight, how it's all like Hyrule just became enveloped by the Twilight after Zant usurped. He became the king of the Twilight. It, so much fun, so much good story, so much good graphics, so many staples. It's so good. It's so good. If this game was a boy, I would suck its dick so hard.
Wow,
okay.
whoa,
I think that's a good stopping point, then.
Yeah, let's move on.
I could suck this game off all day.
No, okay. So
All right, moving on.
we were
Sorry.
previously talking about games that were inspired by Wind Waker, with Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. These
Here's
would
a
be the
guilt.
next in the release. How do you guys feel about them? I
Here's a
haven't
guilt.
played either.
A guilty conscience. I'm a big Zelda fan. I'm a super fan. I like to think that I have great choices. Spirit Tracks was my first ever Zelda game. Let that sink in. It is aside. Whoa. Wait, hold on. Oh, that's units sold. I was gonna say it sold the least, or I thought it was like the least best, but then I realized that was in million. That was millions of copies sold, not review. Spirit Tracks is not talked about, rightfully so. Very weird, very different. Totally not like Zelda for the most part. You ride a train. It's really weird, but you're a mechanic as well, so it's different, very different. I don't remember much about it, really, to be fair, but I remember playing it. I remember loving it. I remember beating it, and I remember that game led me to Phantom Hourglass, which I then played, loved more, and beat like 4 times. And then I played um, Link Between Worlds and uh, the original Link to or Legend of Zelda, and that was also the first time after I beat those that I tried Adventures of Link, and I just gave up real quick. And then I
Like
played
you
Link to
do.
the Past. Yeah, I didn't play Ocarina of Time till about 2014. I beat it in 2014, but I didn't play it until around then. Um, and after I beat Ocarina of Time, this is a timeline of my life. I'm not going to go into it. Spirit Tracks was a very weird game. I very much liked it. I liked the characters. I liked the style. But like, yeah, it was weird. The tower spirits. You know, the you literally just ride a train across the world of
Yeah, you
New
ride a
Hyrule.
train, and then it has the night controls.
Yeah,
And then
and
there's
you
the
fight
pan flute, which
Malladus.
I really enjoyed the pan flute sections.
Yeah, it was cool. Malladus was the main villain.
Yeah, I'm more of a music person
That's
because
true.
I really, really love the music design and like the playable instruments that you can actually play.
Right.
And yes, it was weird to blow into the microphone, but there are weirder uses of the microphone.
That's true. I liked how the Master Sword was again changed to something completely different, kind of like how it was the Picori blade, not the Master Sword. Now it's the Locomo sword, kind of like because it's locomotive, but
Yeah,
um,
Hero of
Locomotion, not on the
Trains.
ocean.
and then we have the better of the two. Even as this is my guilty pleasure game that I it is my first game. That's why I like it so much, which is obviously completely biased because it's my first game. But Phantom Hourglass just better, just better, easy.
Yeah,
Captain Linebeck, Tetra. It's just great. Bellum.
I still haven't gotten into Phantom Hourglass. I only played Spirit Tracks and I loved everything about it. It's just something about, or no, I played, yeah, Spirit Tracks. Something about Phantom Hourglass is just, I don't know, it's hard to get into it for me. And I just
Okay.
kind of prefer Spirit Tracks, which is
Well,
my weird opinion.
well. To be fair, I mean, you love Wind Waker, right?
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, you are aware that Phantom Hourglass is a extremely direct follow up to Wind Waker, right? It takes
Yes.
place immediately after Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Okay. I loved it. I know I played them out of order. I played this game second, and then I didn't play Wind Waker until like 2017 because I never like got around to it. Um, but you know, I did play, to be fair, fans. I did play Phantom Hourglass again after I beat Wind Waker for the first time because I was like, oh, now a lot of this makes sense. All right, but moving on.
That would
James.
be Skyward Sword. Would be the next timeline.
Ooh,
Just want to
boy.
talk. I do not like Fee. I did not like Fee. I did not like the motion
Who
controls.
who did? Who
This
did?
one is, but the story was all right. Again, this is one
Yes.
of the ones where I'm like, it was decent, but it wasn't like one of the best
Yeah.
Now,
Zelda games for me.
if we're talking about, okay, so we'll split this. We're gonna make this kind of quick because Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. What was that sentence? The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword on the Switch, phenomenal game, very good. Controls
Yeah.
are great. Story is the same. I love it. Um,
But on the Wii,
but on the Wii,
it hurt my soul.
boy,
Dear
story
God.
was great. Controls were painfully bad, painfully bad. Um, Fee was really annoying. I would say she was more annoying than Navi and Ocarina.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't hard at all. It was very handholdy. It taught you to go from point A to point B, and I didn't like that.
Still had good story.
Still a
When
great
you
story. It's
could
the
use
first in the
patrols, it
timeline.
was fun. It
Yeah, it's
was
the
fun.
first.
I did like the character.
Oh, I love the characters. Groose is one of my favorite characters in Zelda. He's just funny. He's goofy. I like him.
The Groose is loose.
The Groose is loose.
Impa,
Yeah, Impa.
him.
Girahim is great. I love Peppermint Patty by the Peppermint Boy. He's beautiful. I love him. Calamity Demise is really cool. I love him. He's a big.
Jiggly toes. Mick
Yeah, I was gonna say
falls a lot.
he starts off the game looking real menacing, and then when he finally comes out of the ground, he just looks like a big spiky Among Us creature.
God, why did you put that in my head?
Please stop.
He does. Really though, am I wrong?
You're not wrong, and I hate that you're not wrong.
He's just a big black spiky Among Us guy with teeth. It's funny, but what hasn't been said about Skyward Sword? So
I mean, it's the beginning. I mean, we can talk about how it's literally beginning of
I did say
timeline.
that it is the
Oh, you
start
did?
of it's the start of the timeline. I like how we get to see,
The origin of Ganon.
well, the origin of Ganon and the origin of like Farron Woods, Eldon, and Lanayru, because there was the dragons. They're so cool. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But now we get to one of the most underrated, untalked about, unfairly untalked about Zelda games ever. Link Between Worlds is so good, and nobody talks about it. It's a direct sequel to Link to the Past, and it is just as, if not better than Link to the Past, and I am not afraid to say that.
And I would say it's better, because I consider it my favorite Legend of Zelda game
It
of
does
all time.
really well with 2D.
Really? Link Between Worlds is your favorite?
Yes.
I thought Majora was. Okay.
No, it's really a tie. It's kind of Link Between Worlds. I enjoyed just that much more, just a little bit. But in terms of 2D games, like top down, oh my goodness, Link Between Worlds is like one of the best.
I mean, it does top down and side scroller. That's the thing
and
with it.
No one talks about it.
It's just between it pretty seamlessly.
And
it's just that I haven't played it enough to like properly like it as much as I do Minish.
I 100%ed it and then kept on going because it was that good. Usually when I 100% a game, I'm just like, okay, that's it, I'm done, I'm just gonna stop. But I kept on playing and kept on loving every single second of it.
It's so good, but like, am I wrong? I don't ever hear anyone talk about it. Like, why?
It's because most people consider it just another like clone of
But it's not. When you play it, it's not.
It's kind of like me with Super Metroid versus Zero Mission, because a lot of people consider
in that light. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Where it's just Zero Mission retreads on a lot of Super Metroid, but I'd say it refines it and makes it so much better, and I'd say the same thing with this game. Link Between Worlds. I'd say it's perfection with top-down Zelda games.
It's perfect. It is. It's perfect. It's so good.
It was released in 2013.
It was for the 3DS.
For the 3DS.
It did fall into the trap of releasing at a bad time.
Exactly. That's what I feel like was its issue. It was released in 2013 during the time of... Yeah.
That's true. That's fair. I'll give you that.
If anything, that it suffered due to when it was released.
Yeah.
And it was also just a month after Wind Waker HD, as I'm looking at.
Oh God! Why would they release it at that?
So,
they really need to re-release it.
It really was just stunted by its release.
We're not going to talk about Triforce Heroes because it's not real.
I feel like we should at least say.
Fine.
It's 4 swords, but only with 3.
What do you have to say about
4 swords, but with 3? 4 swords, but with 3 people.
Give me 3 sentences that you can honestly think about that talk about Triforce Heroes.
Okay, give me a minute.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's my point. Nothing happens. It is the lowest selling game in the franchise. It sold worse than Minish Cap, and Minish Cap was for the Game Boy Advance when the Game Boy Advance wasn't selling anymore. And it still sold 1.76. And Triforce Heroes came out in the heat of the 3DS,
Zelda Dungeon, it's not even referenced.
and it came out in 1.34 million. Like,
hold on.
It's a good game because it's the same as a different game. But, like, what happened? Can you tell me what happened in Triforce Heroes genuinely?
No. Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, yeah, I know everything that happens. You can wear a tutu, you can wear whatever you want.
You can wear a tunic.
There's only a walkthrough. There's only a walkthrough on, like, ZeldaDungeon.net.
Yeah, if you're playing it with other people, yes, it is pretty good. But if you're not, then you're better off just skipping.
It suffers from it being 4
You're better
swords,
off playing the next game on the list, which is The Breath of
And it also was released in 2015 for the Nintendo 3DS, so also bad release date.
Yes.
Yeah, but that was more in the heat of the 3DS than the other one was. That was more, because the 3DS succeeded. The Wii U did not.
Yeah.
But now we get to arguably the best game in the franchise, considered by many. Most recent game as well, if we're not counting Hyrule Warriors, which we will be talking about for a brief moment afterwards. Breath of the Wild, what is there to say about this game that hasn't been said by more prominent people for hours on end? This game
Open world, allowing to cook.
Yep.
Movement is better. Does a lot of things better that other Zelda games failed at. Better targeting. Better enemies.
Great story.
Real-time combat and fighting.
Real-time slowed down combat as well.
Phenomenal
better
characters.
Collectibles.
Phenomenal characters and writing.
Good side story, good backstory, good main story.
So much time and content. The only things this is the game that I would consider a perfect game, because I consider a perfect game doesn't exist in the objective standpoint. But a perfect game in my mind is a game that is so good, has a couple flaws. So that means its sequel can be theoretically even better. Yeah, because its sequel can theoretically be better. If you have a perfect game, the sequel can't be better. So a perfect game is a game that is so good and has a couple flaws, so that the sequel can do even better.
Yes.
And this game has a couple flaws. Its weapon system, and it's
you can't hold on to a weapon for long.
No, and it's a little empty.
Oh,
I know
and
that's
then
weird, but yeah.
Then the amiibo subsystem or armor system, where if you want to get all the armors, get ready to pay for amiibo, and if you want to upgrade all of them, get ready to grind for star pieces, which only show up once per night.
You gotta grind a lot in that game.
And
you do have to grind.
You can't keep something that long if you did get like a weapon.
The shrines are a little too
tedious.
And then there's the Korok seeds. Oh my goodness, the Korok seeds.
Korok seeds.
Yeah.
But that overall is like
it's
the worst
very,
I feel about it.
Yeah, it's very nitpicky when you have
like
to.
They actually.
The game is so great that the flaws have to be nitpicked.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like they even gave Link a new costume that works for him.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think they could do that, but it freaking
To be fair,
worked.
he started off basically naked, so.
Yeah. He's in his undies.
His new blue outfit.
I love the blue. Yeah, I do like the blue.
Like, I'm surprised, like, it works so well.
Yeah.
And no hat.
I feel weird.
And it's just like, it's so
I feel
good.
weird changing him to a green color when I'm in that game because I'm like, no, the blue just works better.
Yeah.
It works really well for it. And it's like, wow, surprising.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say mostly, like, the game itself, like, mostly blue there, too, for some reason. Like, you know, the ancient arrows and bomb and all that. So I can see, like, going with...
I like it. I like
Well,
it
and there's a
lot.
lot of green in the land itself, so probably he might blend in. So that might be a design choice.
I love
the pop out more.
the Yiga clan. They're
Oh
goofy.
yeah. Oh, banana.
Yeah, I was gonna say, oh, banana. Next year we have to do a Donkey Kong, Mario, and Metroid.
Probably,
special.
Yeah.
Because
next year,
like,
we're gonna go through all the classic games eventually.
But yeah, now I think we should talk about Hyrule Warriors: Age of Calamity because it's a direct sequel / prequel / both to Breath of the Wild.
I don't really have much to say about it.
I think it's great. I love it. I love it a lot. I'm not going to talk much about it because it's very, very, very recent, and anything I say will be very spoiler heavy. So, you know, I'm just going to force you to play the game.
It's also very, very, very repetitive, and this is coming from a PC gamer, so be advised, but it just doesn't run well on the Switch.
That's false.
A lot of stuff doesn't run well on Switch. I feel that.
It runs at like 15 frames per second. Like, I'm used to 60 frames consistently, and it just doesn't run at that.
I get 40 frames on mine.
I don't. It stutters way too much on me. Then again, I do have a original day one Switch that's gone through some wear and tear. So
my Switch is in mint condition.
Yeah. So the moment I open my OLED for Christmas, maybe it'll run better. Maybe.
It should. It doesn't run bad for me at all.
Oh, it runs terribly for me.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
could also talk about the CDI games or the Tingle.
No, I don't. Fans, look. This is a celebration.
What about the Zelda
Hold on. This is a serious thing. Look, I get it. You know, we have some heated debates and we have some controversial talks and some things. But this is Christmas week. This is a celebration week of why we love Zelda. CDI games, A, they're not canon. B, they weren't made by Nintendo. And C, they're atrocious. And
I mean,
no, there is no I mean. They're bad. They're notoriously bad. People only buy them because they're bad. Because they don't believe it.
They're very
Mike,
memeable.
You're literally doing what I'm asking you to do.
What?
I just want us to talk about them.
All right.
Just barely mention them.
Yeah.
But, like, we're doing a celebratory Zelda day. I don't want to go too into deep about these games because they're not a celebration of Zelda. They are a stain on Zelda that should never have been made. And I am glad to say that Nintendo acknowledges them as non-canon because they're not. They're not. They are not. They are goofy projects that should never have been made. And I feel very strongly about it.
Extremely goofy movie.
They're very memeable. Yes, I like the memes. They're funny. It's funny to watch the game, but not in a funny, oh, this is a cool idea or funny, oh, this is goofy. It's funny, wow, this is so bad that I'm laughing at it. But yeah. I take it personally as a diehard Zelda fan.
And I just laugh at it because it's funny, and it's funny to laugh at something that's funny.
That's fair. And I'm usually that way, but I am passionate about Zelda, so I don't enjoy it.
I mean, we talked about the best stuff on Sonic Enemy, and I feel like this is a minor stain on the Zelda. Anyone really
the only stain really
that really anyone hardly looks at. I would say the only major stain, but fair enough.
Yeah, I mean it's the only real stain that I can think of for the most part, aside from Nintendo corporate decisions. But if we're going by the games, it's the only really stain that I can think of. Now, if we're talking about corporate, which we're not, but if we're talking about corporate, then the 35th anniversary was an absolute joke.
Yeah.
And I am thoroughly angry to this day that they still didn't do a damn real thing. because Zelda is just as big as Mario, almost. It is almost just as responsible for Nintendo's success as Mario. Those two are Nintendo's babies. They are Nintendo's front runners. Mario is a little bit more, but it's not that much more. People still know Zelda very, very worldwide. It is not a niche franchise. It is very important. It has one of the most important games ever made, and they've relegated it to a re-release of a game that did not do well. Which, fine, it deserved a re-release. Fine, I'm happy we got Skyward Sword. They teased a little bit more about Breath of the Wild 2, slightly, and they gave us a Game & Watch thing. I'm not ungrateful for these things. However, Mario got a theme park. Mario got so much. And he should have. Mario should have gotten that much. I'm not unhappy for Mario, but Zelda should have gotten... I don't think Zelda should have gotten as much because it is slightly less than Mario.
It felt like
but it should have gotten
more place.
It should have gotten a lot more. There should have been more marketing. There should have been some plushies or like stuff. If they weren't going to do any more games, why not put in a couple $1 million of your $1 trillion company to like a couple just things, just anything. Why?
Triforce keychain or something.
Anything like the.
Where's my Midna amiibo?
Where like I could I'm getting heated and I'm getting angry right now. Not a fun kind of angry. I'm getting the angry that I shouldn't be getting at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like I'm getting angry because I'm thinking about it again, it's just frustrating.
We should probably end it here then, since it is.
But
I do thank you, everyone that's listening to this, for sticking around for Zelda's discussion.
Zelda's special day. Zelda's special day is what this is going to be called.
Zelda's special day because Nintendo didn't
do a damn thing.
I'm probably just going to call it Zelda Day.
That's fine. So thank you all very much for watching this day's episode, the episode 3, honestly, of Christmas week. I can't believe we're already 3 days in. And tomorrow you will be able to see a great Pokemon episode that we've kind of talked a lot about, but never really in depth about everything. So look forward to it. We're looking forward to it. And that's all from me. I'm Mike.
I'm James.
And I'm Joey.
And we will see you later.
Yeah. See ya.
See ya.